So good morning, good morning. We're talking today about the Torah portion, Chaya, Sara, one of my most favorite Torah portions. And Chaya, Sara means the life of Sara, our matriarch. And it's very cryptic because the first passage says, and the life of Sara was 127 years, and Sara died. So it's interesting that the only Torah portion named after a woman, and it doesn't talk about her life, it talks about her passing. And it says that she lived for 100 years, for 20 years, and for 7 years. It doesn't say she lived for 127 years. So grammatically, there's a little problem with the wording of the passage. So once the Lubavitcher Rebbe was giving a talk, and the Rebbe spoke for many hours, and people were falling asleep, especially in the front row, the elderly disciples. So the Rebbe laughed. He said, I don't feel bad that people are falling asleep during my talk, because Rabbi Akiva, the great scholar, the great sage who had thousands and thousands of students, was once giving a class late at night, adult education, and he noticed his students were falling asleep. And he noticed the students were falling asleep. So he says to his student, do you know why Queen Esther ruled over 127 nations of Persia? Remember the Queen Esther story? So the students woke up like, what is this interesting story? Rabbi Akiva is telling us about Queen Esther? And Rabbi Akiva answers, the reason is because Sarah lived for 127 years. So first of all, what's the connection? What does Queen Esther have to do with Sarah? And why was this the story he's telling to wake up his students? Why not tell them another story? Why tell them to say, why did Queen Esther live over 127 years? Because rule over 127 nations? Because Sarah lived for 127 years. What's the connection? So, Winston Churchill, whenever he was in Parliament, there was one statesman who would get up and speak for a long time, and he took a nap at that time. So the statesman comes over to him, he says, Winston, my friend, how come every time I give a speech, you got to sleep? Can you try to keep yourself awake? And he says, no, I do it voluntary. I know that's when I'm going to take my nap. So the guy comes to a therapist, and the therapist says, how can I help you? He says, I have a very big problem. He says, what's the problem? He says, what time is it, doctor? The doctor says, it's 2 p.m. He says, you see, every time I ask a person the time, it's a different time. That's my problem.
Funny.
So what was Rabbi Akiva telling his students by telling them the story? He says, you know why Queen Esther ruled over 127 nations? Because Sarah lived for 127 years. And Rashi says the reason it's broken up 100 years, 20 years, 7 years, to teach us that every portion of her life, every second, every millisecond, every moment of her life, every second of her life, she accomplished something. She was pure, she was holy. Every moment was utilized to the utmost. And that's what Rabbi Akiva was telling his students who were sleeping. Don't sleep away your life. Make sure, of course, we all need to sleep. Every moment possible is not a waste. You're accomplishing, you're doing, you're moving forward in life. Just like Sarah. Now imagine Sarah would have said, listen, Abraham, my dear husband, I'm already doing this. I'm a Rebbetzin for 100 years. I'm a matriarch. I'm time to retire. I'm tired of teaching. I'm tired of opening my home to thousands of guests. I'm tired of being the leader. Let me take a little break. And Avram had said, honey, you deserve it. That means 27 years of her life would be relaxation and not moving forward. So Queen Esther would have ruled over 100 nations. What's so terrible? what was so terrible was that she was able to save 127 countries of Jews from death. So if Sara would have slacked off, Queen Esther would have had, there would have been ramifications years later, which comes to show us that everything we do has a ripple effect. You might say, what's the big deal? She was great for 100 years. Give her 27 years where she could do whatever she wants, whenever she wants. But then Queen Esther would have been the queen over 100 nations. That means 27 nations would not have been saved because they wouldn't be under her ruling. She would not be the queen of those nations. So every minute of Sarah's time was utilized for good, for it, working on herself, working for people, working for her family, accomplishing and doing. And that's what Rabbi Akiva is teaching us. Like Aristotle said, there's only one thing that can kill you, one teacher, that's time. So time is a very precious thing in our lives. So it opened up telling us that the life of Sara was perfect. The life of Sara was amazing. Every minute of her life was one to be treasured and one to be emulated and one that we could say, you know, if I could only do a little bit of what Sara did, I'm already great. And that's why the Torah portion opens up as Chaya Sara, the life of Sara, even though it talks about her passing and her funeral, because when do you see a person's impact? When do you see what a person was or is when they is when they pass away. Some people, you have a very beautiful funeral for them, you eulogize, and then it's over. Sara, even after her passing, she gives birth to Yitzchak, and he and his wife Rivka soon will see become the next matriarch and patriarch. And what does Rivka do? She emulates her mother-in-law in every which way. And that's how you know a person's life was worth living, because look what happens after she's gone. Her memory, but not only her memory, oh, what a beautiful memory. Remember when Mama did this? Remember Mama's blintzes? Remember Mama's knedlach? Remember Mama's lipstick? Remember Mama's whatever? But what she did was passed on to the next generation. That's the sign of a great life. Sign of a great life is, what are you going to leave behind? It's a very big question. Remember the Nobel Peace Prize.
The reason is yesterday.
Why the Nobel Peace Prize was established.
Terrible pain.
Anybody know the story?
10 days ago, I was diagnosed with
So
OSD.
basically, Alfred E. Nobel was a manufacturer, millionaire manufacturer of the most ammunition and weaponry. He was the largest manufacturer of bombs and weapons. And his brother passes away, and he opens up the newspaper, and there's an obituary for him. Alfred E. Nobel passed away at age 87, the largest manufacturer of mass destruction, it says. And he looks at it and he says, wow, that's what I'm going to be remembered for? Mass destruction, weapons, killing, war? And he established the Nobel Peace Prize so that he should be remembered for good, for rewarding people for achievements in life and science and peace and so on. So Chaya Sara shows us, what are you going to be remembered for? What are you going to be remembered for? And that's a very, very important question you have to ask yourself. Because if you look at the Torah portion, Avram is in his hundreds, Sara passes away 127, until the last second of her life, and Avram's life, later when he passes away, was utilized, that always moving forward, always doing. There's always something positive happening in their lives. And sometimes you get older, you want to retire, you want to take it easy, but you see that every moment of their lives was utilized to do good and help and achieve and be a leader for the world, for the community at large. And that's the life of Sara. Now, Avram needs to bury his beloved wife, and he doesn't have a burial plot. So he goes and he finds a guy called Ephron, the Hittite. Enjoy, Denise. Don't feel bad. Enjoy.
Sorry.
And he says to him, I would like to buy this plot of land to bury my wife. So Ephron says, Abraham, you're the great Abraham. I'm giving you a gift. Don't buy it. Be my guest. Bury your wife in peace. Wonderful. Abraham says, no, I insist on purchasing this plot. And once Ephron saw that Abraham was going to purchase, he charged him an exorbitant amount of money, 400 shekels, which was like now $1 million for a plot. And Abraham pays it, and he buries his wife in Hebron, in the Ma'arat HaMachpelah. All know the Ma'arat, a famous place where all the matriarchs and patriarchs are buried. Now, what is the story of this cave? Very interesting story. Remember in the previous Torah portion, Abraham, after circumcision, invites 3 men, angels disguised as men, into his home, right? And he feeds them and he serves them. Remember the story? And it says that Abram went to prepare meat for them. So Abram goes outside and he spots a ram, and the ram begins running away. So he goes after it to catch it so he could slaughter it properly and prepare it for his guests. And he chases the ram into a cave. And he goes into this cave and he smells something unusual, like a Garden of Eden aroma. And he feels the divine presence. And he realizes that he ended up in the cave where Adam and Eve were buried, Adam and Chava are buried. So not by coincidence that he finds this special cave. And he hangs out there many times throughout his life because it's a very special place. It is part of the Garden of Eden, but it's hidden away in a sense. Now, he doesn't want Ephron, the Hittite, know that this is a special place where he wants to bury Sara, in the same place Adam and Chava are buried, and where he's going to be buried, and the future matriarchs and patriarchs are buried. So he makes sure not to draw too much attention to this special piece of land and with the cave. And he pays an exorbitant sum because he wants to get hold of this property, the very special property. And he gets it, he buys it, and he has a deed, and now it's his. Which now poses a very crazy question. What did God promise Abraham and Sarah? I'm giving you the land of Israel. It's going to be your inheritance. And I'm going to give you so many children, they're going to be as many of the stars in the heaven and the sand on the beach. Do you see thousands of children? He has one son, whose son is a bachelor so far. He's 37 years old. By the way, I made a mistake. Last week I said that Isaac was 38 when his father offered him as an offering, he was 37. His son is a bachelor. And do you see him inheriting any land? He has to buy even a burial plot for Sarah. If he owned the land, he wouldn't have to buy a burial plot. The whole country is his. So what's this promise? God promised, well, where's the promise, the Almighty God? Didn't you just say at least 7 times to Avram and Sarah, you inherit the land, you're going to have so many children. Where is the fulfillment of this promise? Is a very interesting question. So for this, we have to dig a little deeper. Anybody have an answer? Where is the fulfillment of the promise? I promise you that I'm giving you my inheritance. Hello, where is it? Is it in probate court? Where is the inheritance? If God promises, anybody have an insight what's going on here?
Is he talking about the land of Israel and the people? I'm not sure.
No, yeah. God promises Abraham the land of Israel. So where's the land of Israel? Why isn't it his already? He left his hometown, remember? Haran, Mesopotamia, near Turkey. He comes here. Why isn't he? The land should be his already. So this is a very beautiful insight. I read that this really defines how our lives, where God gives us tools. God gives us, in a sense, promises. God gives us a vision. God gives us directives. But we have to take the steps to fulfill that promise.
Sure.
to get what we need. So God says to Avram and Sarah, I'm giving you the land, but battles have to be fought there. There are strangers living in the land. And by Avram purchasing that first plot for 400 shekel, he's taking the first steps to fulfill God's promise. In other words, God does not only throw things down, manna from heaven. We have to give the human effort. We have to put in our effort to fulfill the promises, the directives. We have to take the first step on the journey. That's what God wants from us. Not that we're going to be spoon-fed everything and thank you, God, and there's no initiative from our end. God wants people to take initiative. I'm promising you something, but you have to take a step to get that promise. Now, that's why in this Torah portion, Avram says, my son is 37. God promised that I'm going to have a nation come out of my son. We got to get moving. I need to go J-date him. I got to go out to the matchmaker. We got to get him a maidel, a shayna maidel. All right, we got to match him up.
Right.
So this shows us again how the matriarchs and patriarchs, why are they leaders? Because the leaders in starting the journey that we will continue. So throughout the generations, we are continuing this journey of Avram and Sarah, settling the promised land, building our children, building our families. God promises, but we have to act on those promises. That's the insight I think that this has, that to me, it resonates with me. I very much relate to this, how we have to take initiative. And you know what? Taking initiative is a very, very good thing. You know, I was giving a grant lecture, asking money for Circle of Friends. And they said, how many volunteers do you have? I said, we don't have 150 teen volunteers. We have 150 teen leaders. Because now every one of those teens is a leader of inclusion, of friendship, of goodness and kindness. So leaders make leaders. Avram and Sarah were not like, we'll do it for you, everybody. Just hang out. We'll show you what to do and we'll do it for you. They educated people to they themselves be leaders. That's what a leader is. A leader makes leaders. That's a true leader. You know, when a leader comes and wants only to have you be a disciple and a follower, and yes, master, that's not the sign of a true leader. That's the sign to me of a narcissist who needs people adoring him or her. Cults are made that way. True leaders, make people think independently. Make people take initiative. That's God telling people, you got to take a little initiative. When God told Noah, I'm going to bring a flood, Noah went and built an ark. Noah didn't sing around, oh, I guess God will put me on a boat. I guess God will send down a raft. I guess God will send me an outboard motor and I'll be saved. When Noah heard that God said to him, there's going to be a flood, he starts building an ark. He takes action. That's what God wants from us. I'm sending a flood, you have to start building an ark. I'm giving you a land, go fight the battle, go start seeing how you can acquire this property. So this is what's happening here. So Avram buries Sarah. It's very sad, of course. It's heartbreaking. And now we move forward in the story. What happens next is, first of all, does anybody want to add anything, say anything, complain?
It's hard sometimes to take initiative.
Yeah, it is.
Challenging. For me, I find that's challenging. It's just a comment, a personal comment.
It's hard to take initiative. Sometimes you have to take a very small step because it's hard to take a big step. It's scary sometimes. Sometimes I have to make a decision to do something and I'm like, wow. But then you take the plunge and it happens. It's so interesting. I could relate so much to that. Like even planning a very large program, I'm always scared to choose the date. Because once you choose the date, so when you choose the date, and when you send out the email and you say, thank God I took initiative, it's done. I can't go back. Sometimes, you take the plunge and that helps you go forward because you took the plunge. What are you going to do now? You're going to go back. You can't backtrack.
Right, make the decision.
Make the decision.
Any decision is better than no indecisiveness. Just make a decision and move forward.
You know, it's like when you have to marry somebody, it's a very difficult decision. It's scary when you have to say the yes to the person, you know, very scary. We're going to soon talk about it. It's going to happen. So, so this is the story. I want to say, just something very fascinating. I also want to share about the Moras HaMachpelah, the cave of Machpelah, it's called. Machpelah is a place in Hebron. So Rashi says it was a two-story house. But how is a cave a two-story house? Why does Rashi use the word bayis, house? So Lubavitcher Rebbe comments on this and he says, you know why? Because on the property there was this two-story house. And it was very unusual in those days to have a two-story colonial house. Who had a two-story house in those days? They had tents, they had shacks. Who had a two-story house? So the fact that Rashi points it out is just an interesting insight. You want to know where the Ma'aras HaMachpelah is? It's near the two-story house. You want to know where Diane lives? Across the street from the Saugatuck River, so to speak. And so why is it called Ma'aras HaMachpelah? Either the place is Machpelah or it's called a double-decker cave because the matriarchs and patriarchs were buried on double-deckers. Adam Achava, lower deck was the other Abraham and Sarah and so on. So it was like a double-decker cave. Interesting insight. So how big was this plot? The Torah tells us it was 600,000 square cubits. And you know, the Torah doesn't tell you measurements unless it's important. The Torah doesn't tell details unless it's there to teach you something. What's 600,000? Who can remember? Two very pivotal, it's a pivotal number in Jewish life. How many Jews, how many souls were at Sinai to receive the Torah?
I guess 600,000.
600,000. How many letters and spaces in the Torah scroll?
600,000.
600,000. When Avram purchases the plot of land and the land of Israel is now ours, because we're the children of Avram and Sara, it's us, the 600,000 representative of the 600,000 souls and the 600,000 letters and spaces in the Torah, because every Jew is a letter in the Torah. That's why when you take out a Torah scroll, parchment, and you want to read the Torah portion in the synagogue, right? And let's say one letter is erased. Something happened. The scribe, the ink got erased, or there's a hole. You know, things happen to parchment. You're not allowed to use the Torah scroll. You have to repair it. Why? Because if every Jew is a letter in the Torah and there's one Jew missing, one Jew fell apart, one Jew fell away, one Jew disappeared, you cannot have a kosher Torah scroll. The world has to have every single person who's meant to be on this earth. One person is missing, life cannot go on for the rest of us. That's why every Jew is considered a letter in the Torah, and that's why the first plot of land purchased in Israel is symbolic of the 600,000 souls who are going to inherit the land of Israel. It's our land. Even the square cubits represent that it's the 600,000 Jews who are going to, and souls who are inheriting this land. So everything is connected. All the dots. There's nothing left out of this purchase. In case you want to question it later. Is it ours? Maybe it wasn't ours. Maybe he didn't buy it. Maybe he didn't pay enough money for it. Maybe he got it in foreclosure. No. He paid an exorbitant amount of money. He paid more than it was worth, and he got the deed. And guess what? Sara is buried there. What other proof do you need? Sara, the mother of Yitzchak, was buried there. It's very important for us to know this because we question now with all the conflict. Is Israel ours? Shouldn't we share it? Is it fair to the Arab countries? Maybe it really is theirs. Maybe we need peace. Give a piece of land for peace. So that's why it's very important for us to know our history and know the facts and know the details. So we feel secure in who we are as Jews. Not, maybe it's not so nice. Maybe, why are we so controversial always? Why are we always so confrontational as Jews? People like to say, which is so not true. We're the most compassionate people. And we'll soon see where we get this compassion, where Israeli soldiers the army announces when they're going to bomb terrorists so that in case there's any innocent civilians, you can get them out in time. You ever heard of a country who's going to bomb terrorists, announce, everybody, we're bombing you tomorrow at 10 a.m. So if there are any children and women and innocent civilians, you know what, move them out by bus.
But they don't all leave.
That they intentionally hide themselves among civilians and children and nursery schools so that the Israelis should later be said, you see, they bombed the nursery school. They bombed the children. They intentionally hide among their civilians. So upsetting to me, so upsetting how the world takes these lies and believes it. Baba Mises. So where do we get this compassion? We get it from Avram and Sara. Their whole approach to humanity was compassion. Come into my house. I'll grill you a nice rib steak with all the condiments, with all the side dishes, with all the delicious accompaniments. And you know what? While you're munching, I'm going to tell you, there's a God. God created the world. After you eat, let's bless God. Wow. Isn't this beautiful? While you're eating a gourmet dinner with delicious wines and alcoholic drinks, you're going to hear about the magnificent Creator in a beautiful environment, music playing in the background, flowers on the table. And then Sara comes out. She's beautiful. She's intelligent. She's smart. She's engaging. And she bakes delicious challah. You know what I mean? And that's how they brought people closer, not through hammering them on the head. You better listen to me. If you don't listen to me, God is going to strike you with lightning. Their whole approach was love, compassion, goodness. And that's why they were successful. So now a very interesting thing happens. Avram calls in his trusted servant, Eliezer, who Eliezer, by the way, was a very special person. The trusted servant of Avram was no plain guy. He was a very, very special guy. Living with Avram, who wouldn't be, right? And he says, Eliezer, I need you to go to my hometown, Haran, and find a girl for Yitzchak. There's a very, very interesting conversation going on here. I want to read it to you because it's very fascinating what happens. So Avram says to Eliezer, I have a job for you. I want you to go find me a wife for my son. Where should you go for a wife? If I said to you, Denise, you're a matchmaker, right? Denise, do me a favor. I need a wife for my son Yitzchak. He's 37 years old. He's extremely handsome. He's very wealthy. He is the son of Abraham and Sarah. He was willing to sacrifice his life because God said so. Remember, he said, tie me up, Dad. And he's an intelligent fellow, everything going for him. I want you to find him a wife. Where would you look, Denise? Where would you go? Where would you go find him a wife?
Where would I go find him a wife?
Yeah.
He sounds like some catch. I would want him to have, the most wonderful, woman who is similar and gives and cares and loves and.
No. So which country would you buy? Would you look in, where would you go? What's your feeling?
I'd want him to be with a Jewish person.
Well,
so, but Israel's not Israel yet, right?
Okay.
So where do you go? Where are the Jews?
That's
where are the
question.
people? You tell me. I don't know.
So basically, you remember there was no Jewish nation yet, right?
Yes, right.
And they weren't obligated to keep Torah and mitzvahs because they didn't get the Torah yet till many generations later.
Right.
It says the matriarchs and patriarchs kept the Torah through prophecy. So they kept kosher, they kept Shabbos, they did circumcision, but they weren't obligated. So if you didn't circumcise your child and you believed in God, you weren't criticized as a sinner because there was no obligation. They did it as being the leaders of the future Jewish nation. Right. So monotheism taught us to serve God, but if you didn't eat kosher, nothing happened to you. Even now, if you don't eat kosher, but it wasn't obligation. So I would think, this is my own opinion, they go in the neighborhood, because in the neighborhood, Avram and Sarah lived there, and the people are more likely to be like them.
Right.
But yet Avram sends his Eliezer to go back home. Remember, he lived in a Haran, Mesopotamia, was a place of idolatry. That wasn't a place that they worshipped one God, monotheism. Avram ran away from there with his family because they were not a people of morals and ethics like he and Sara. Yet he sends Eliezer there. Go back to Haran, go my hometown.
Is he trying to bring more of those people?
Possibly.
What was your take? What is your opinion?
Because the girl is there. That's
Right.
why. The girl that he needs is there.
Oh, but how do they know that's the girl?
That's what we're going to find out.
Okay.
Very good. That's an excellent question. How does he know which girl? It's not saying, like they say to you, Freida, where are you from? I'm from Connecticut. Oh, my cousin Saul? Oh, yeah. Where does he live in Connecticut? Okay, we're in Connecticut. So go find me a girl, Denise, in Mesopotamia. We are in Mesopotamia. What's her name?
It feels like it sometimes.
Where am I going? Am I going to the JCC in Mesopotamia? Where am I finding you a girl?
Right, exactly.
So look what happens. So now Eliezer, what does he say to Abraham? Something very interesting. And the servant said to him, perhaps the woman will not be willing to follow me back home. In other words, he'll find the girl. Let's say he finds the perfect girl.
Right.
He said, but maybe she's not going to want to come. So maybe I need to bring your son there to meet her onto the land. She'll say, okay, it sounds like a good marriage proposal, but where's the boy? Can I see what he looks like?
Okay.
I want to see if he's nice. Can he have a conversation? Do we share interests?
Okay, that seems fair.
Abram says to him, no, you can't bring my son with you. The God of heaven who took me from my father's house, he will send an angel before thee, and thou shalt take a wife for my son from thence. In other words, God will help you find the right girl.
Okay.
Now, Yitzchak was never left the land of Israel. His soul belonged in the land of Israel, so he never left. He did not go to find a bride out of the land of Israel. His mission and his journey was to remain in the land of Israel. He was a very pure soul. So there's a reason he doesn't leave to go find a wife himself, where his father sends Eliezer.
Okay.
So now Eliezer says to himself, okay, my master Abraham gave me a mission and I got to fulfill this mission. So he makes himself a plan. He promises to do it. And look what it says. And the servant took 10 camels and departed. And he went to the city of Nahar. And he went to the well of water. So he goes to the well. He travels to Mesopotamia, to Haran, and he goes to the well. Because the well was the meeting place. In those days, like the marketplace, the well, everyone needed water.
Correct.
Travelers, right? You go to the well, you feed your camels, you feed your horses, you fill up your canteens. This was the central part of the city, like city hall, so to speak. Okay? And he says, this is what he says when he comes to the well. Almighty God, I pray for you on this day that I am by the well of water, and the daughters of the city come down to draw water. How will I know which girl is for Yitzchak? I'm ad-libbing to the passage. It doesn't say it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Will be the girl that will say, drink from my pitcher of water. And not only that, she's going to say, and I will give the camels to drink too. And then I will know that this is the girl that will be for my master's son Yitzchak. So Eliezer is saying to God, God, I'm coming to the well, and how will I know which is the girl? Because she's going to come over to me and say, would you like to drink from my pitcher of water? And then she's also going to offer my camels water. And then I'll know this is the girl, he says to God. This is the sign, this is the omen to find the girl. So hope, God, that you'll give me the sign, right? Send the girl. Now, the question is, it says very clearly in the Talmud, you're not allowed to have an omen in Jewish life. We're not allowed to use witchcraft, omens, sorcery, fortune telling. You're not allowed to. It's against Jewish law. It's prohibited. So let's say you want to know whether to invest in a certain stock market, in a certain company, you go to your local palm reader,
Like a medium,
and
yeah.
she's going to look at your hand, Denise, and say, okay, yes, invest in the property. You're not allowed to do that according to Jewish law. You know the story. So a girl can't find her bashert. She's everywhere. She's got a J date, and she goes to every place to meet and mingle. She can't find. So her friends say to her, why are you giving yourself such a hard time? Go to the local palm reader, the lady, how do you lose the lady that in the glass bowl? The fortune teller.
Yeah, the fortune teller medium.
She does an excellent job. Go to her. She's going to tell you where your bashert is, where your match is. It's okay. So she goes to 47th Street. There's a whole block of all types. There's palm readers, card readers, fortune tellers, seances, every type, witchcraft, sorcerers, every kind of macher is on that block. She goes into one, she gets scared out of her witch. She goes to another. She can't say, which one should I go to? So she opens the door to one shop, and a little yentish comes out, Bubala, come inside. You want me to tell your future? Come inside, Bubala. And she feels so comfortable. So she goes inside, and the lady asks her, Nu, why are you here? You want a little coffee, a little kichala? She says, no, I'm good. Why are you here? I'm here because my friends told me you'll tell me where to find my bashert, my shidduch, my match. I need a match. She says, of course, you came to the right place. She takes out her glass ball, and she dims the lights, and she starts going, wait. Oh, Mazel Tov. She said, what? Tell me. She said, I have the best news for you. This coming week, you're going to meet the most handsome, smart, kind, adorable, rich boy you ever in your dreams. She says, really? How do you know? She says, how do I know? It's my son. That's my joke. So how did Eliezer give an omen to God? We don't do omens. We don't believe in that. It's against Jewish law. You don't do all these things because it's idolatry. By using omens, we're basically saying God doesn't rule the world. There's no divine providence. It's all based on sorcery, witchcraft, stargazing, astrology, seances. How do you call when you read the cards? Palm readers, and so on. So that's why we don't believe in this, because it's a form of idolatry. You're not allowed to go to you're not allowed to go to a sorcerer to help you. Nor are you allowed to wake up in the morning and you go outside and a black cat runs in front of you. You come back inside, honey, I'm not going to work. Why? Because a cat ran in front of me, my day will not be lucky. And we all have omens. Thunder struck my rose bush. I'm not going to the tea party. Why? Thunder struck my rose bush. It means it's a bad sign. Jews do not do that. But we do poo and all that, right? Poo. So has Eliezer given omen? So the commentaries answer say it's not an omen. He's basically saying, God, I'm looking for a girl that has unbelievable kindness and compassion. So if the girl shows extreme characteristics of kindness and compassion, she's the girl for Yitzchak. So he's not saying, if a black cat jumps off the bucket and the water lands on me, I know it's the girl. It's more he's saying, God, show me a girl that has extreme kindness and compassion. Because look what he's saying. She should give me water and my camels water. She should feed me and feed my camels. That's what he's asking God. So that's why we cannot say this, that he's using omens. Rather, he's describing a personality trait of a girl that he's looking for. That's what the commentaries say, because they ask this question. How are you allowed to use an omen?
But why did he go back to the other town? Did we talk about that?
Abram told him to go there.
So he just listens.
Yeah. Avram says, where should you go? Go to Mesopotamia, Haran, my hometown.
Okay.
So at least he has a country to go find the girl. We're breaking down the
Well,
boundary.
that's why I was like, where's the community? Okay, so he went back to like a
Right.
pool.
Sorry if I wasn't clear. So he goes
Oh,
back.
that's
Yeah. And notice he takes 10 camels. Now you assume he had with him, if he took 10 camels, no one travels without an entourage. There are, pirates, murderers, thieves on the roadways. It wasn't exactly, it was an uncivilized time in our history. So you don't go alone. So he takes 10 camels. The Torah says you assumed he also took at least 8 to 9 men with him to travel with him. Also, Eliezer is not like, when you say he was the servant of Abraham, it's like saying he was the second in command to the president. He's not like servant, like, oh, he washes the lavatory and dusts off the table after breakfast. He was Avram's first right-hand man, so to speak. He was the right-hand man. And he comes to the well, and let's read what happens. This is very, very fascinating. And behold, Rebecca comes out. Who was Rebecca? She was the daughter of Bethuel, Abraham, who was Avram's brother. So in other words, it's Abraham's niece, okay? And she has a picture on her shoulder. And she was very beautiful to look upon, a girl. And it says, what was she doing? She was going down to the well. She filled up her pitcher and she came up. Why does the Torah tell us that she had to go down to fill up a pitcher? And you'll hear why. Again, the Torah does not give us details without a reason. And what's very fascinating, as we'll soon see, that there's 67 passages just about this story, describing in great detail what happens. So he sees Rivka. She is the daughter of Bethuel, okay? Abraham's nephew. So it's Abraham's nephew's daughter. And she goes with her pitcher and he watches her go down into the well. So obviously you had to walk down to the well. She fills up her pitcher with water and now she's coming up. And she's beautiful, the Torah tells us. And Eliezer goes over to her and says, can I have some water to drink? A little water from your pitcher? So she says to him, drink, my lord. And she lowers down the pitcher and she gives him a drink. And when she finished giving him drink, she says to him, and he says to her, so also for my camels, can I have water? And she hastened and emptied her pitcher into the trough and ran again onto the well to draw water for all the camels. And till the camels were full. And when he saw that all of his 10 camels were full, he goes to his bag, his saddle bag. He takes out jewelry worth a half a shekel, bracelets. And he says, whose daughter are you? And she says, I am the daughter of Bethuel. And he says to her, can I come stay in your father's house? And she says, of course. You can come stay in my father's house. And she takes him to her father's house. Now, before we go to the end of the story, look what happens here. And why is the Torah describing it in such detail? And to tell us what happened here. So he comes over to her and he says, oh, can I have a drink of water? So she says, of course. She gives him a drink of water. Then she says, and also, can I give water for your camel? He says, and for my camel? She said, of course. And she goes and brings water for the 10 camels. Now, there's 10 camels. She has one pitcher. Do the equation. How many pitchers will fill, how many shrouds and how many pitchers? I did a little science here. I want to read it to you because it's so fascinating. 30 gallons in 13 minutes. She must have gone down 60 times, I figured out mathematically, to fill up the trough for the 10 camels. 60 times She goes down with the pitcher, comes up, fills the trough, back, till all the 10 camels are full. Now, how do you know when a camel is full? I looked it up. The camel has a hump. I'm sorry, but it's a very interesting thing here. Now, when the camel travels through the desert, it can go 6 to 7 months without food. The hump, when it's filled with water, together with the fat of the camel, can sustain it for 6 to 7 months. That's why the people used camels. Now, as the camel finishes up its water, the hump goes down. When it's full, the hump goes up. So the humps are empty. She has to make sure every hump is back up, right? So it's 60 times to feed 10 camels, okay? Now, this is not kindness. This is kindness on steroids. Let me tell you something. She's a girl. A man comes over to says, can I have a drink of water? Okay, I would also say, here, honey, here, sir, take a drink from my pitcher. Can you also feed my camel? Of course. I would say to him, you know what, sir, you're welcome to use my pitcher, and please go feed your camels. He's a man, she's a girl. Also, he came with men. Where are his men? Oh, excuse me, sir, here's my pitcher. I'm sure your men can use it to feed their camels, right? He's there, he's a man, and he's there with an entourage of men. She's doing the work while they're sitting around munching on jerky, beef jerky. Like, what's going on here? And we know she's the one because the Torah says she's the one. By the way, I made one little mistake. He doesn't say feed my camels. She said, and can I also feed your camels? Now the Torah asks a question. Why didn't she say to him, here's my pitcher and let your men feed the camels or water the camels or you water the camels? She assumed that because she offered and he said yes, that something was wrong with him. She assumed that maybe he's hurt, wounded, he has a back problem, he has a sciatica, and maybe there's a problem with his men, because otherwise he would have said to her, no, honey, I have a whole troop of men who are going to feed my camels. By allowing her to give water to the camels, she assumed there was a problem, that he couldn't do it, so she's doing it. And the commentaries say that's why she didn't say to him, oh, sir, how come you don't want to feed your camels? You know, I'm just a girl and I'm tired and this is going to be too much for me. I could feed maybe one camel, but 10 camels? Because the Torah is showing us, she didn't even question. She says, sir, you want water? He says, yes. Can I also give water to your camels? He said, yes. When he said yes, she didn't say, oh, by the way, come to think of it, it's too much for me. So when she, by the way, so again, to reiterate, I made a mistake in the previous. She offered to give water to the camels, just like Eliezer said in the Omen. If she offers me water and my camel's water, I know it's the girl. So this kindness and compassion that Rivka shows, he right away knows this is the girl. He said to God, and the girl appears and does exactly what he says. So he runs to the saddlebag and he gives her the bracelets, telling her, like, I'm here for a reason. I'm here to give you a proposition. And then she doesn't even hesitate when he says, can we sleep over at your house? She doesn't say, well, I got to ask my parents. I don't know if they have other guests. Maybe there's no room. Maybe my mother didn't cook enough. She says, absolutely. And he comes to the house and she introduces him and he says why I'm there. He says to Basuel, her father, and to her mother, Nahar, he says, hi, I am the servant of Abraham, your uncle, and I want you to know that I was sent here to find Yitzchak a wife, and I said to my master Abraham, Ulai, maybe the girl won't want to come with me, so maybe I should bring your son with me, and my master Abraham said, absolutely not. You go and bring the girl back here. And he brings out the gifts of betrothment, okay? And they said, fine, sleep over, in the morning will be good. Now in the morning, what happens? Lavan, her brother, her mother come out, but the father is nowhere to be found. And overnight he died because he tried to poison Eliezer so he could steal all the money. When he tried to poison, God made sure that he died in his sleep. So they wake up in the morning, the father and the mother and the brother, and he says, okay, I'm ready to take her. So they say, but what do you mean you're ready to take her? We have to ask her first. So they ask her, will you go with this man? And she doesn't hesitate. She said, absolutely. She sees this as her destiny. So they say to him, okay, she'll go with you eventually. Let's wait 10 months. In 10 months, we'll send her on her way. She'll be betrothed, but she'll stay here a little bit. And he says, absolutely not. My mission is to bring her now. And they know what happened to the father. They realize there's a holy guy here. The father died because he tried to kill Eliezer. And so he takes her back to the land of Israel. There's a very interesting psychoanalysis here. I'm going to end with the psychoanalysis. Why does the Torah repeat the whole story twice? 67 passages, Abraham and Eliezer have a conversation, tells us what happens at the well. Then Eliezer repeats the whole story to her parents. I was sent from Avram, and Avram said to go, and I said, maybe she won't want to go. And Avram said, well, I can't send my son with you. And then I came to the well and I asked for water, and your daughter gave me water, and then your daughter gave my camels water, and then I gave her a bracelet worth half a shekel, and now I'm here. Why does he repeat the whole story twice? He could have just said, I'm here. Abraham sent me. I want to take your daughter for a wife for Yitzchak. We already know the story, right, Diane? Does the author of the Torah have to repeat the story for us twice? You understand what happened here? Right, the question is clear, everybody? Why repeat the whole story what happened? We know what happened. Why does Eliezer tell the whole story over? Okay, maybe he did for emphasis, but why does the Torah repeat that he repeated? And something very crazy happens here. I want to share it because it's so astonishing. He says to Abraham the first time, Ulai, maybe the girl won't want to come. So send Yitzchak with me. The girl will see him. She'll want to come. So Abraham says no. Now he repeats the story to Besuel. He said, and I said to my master, Abraham, Ulai, the girl won't want to come because she didn't see your son. But there's a letter missing in the second Ulai. So Rashi jumps in and says, when he repeats the story to Besuel, he says, Eli, the same word Ulai, but it's missing the vav, which means to me. Ulai means, what if the girl doesn't want to come? Eli means to me. What happens here, Rashi explains, that when he's repeating the story, Rashi says that when Eliezer heard that Abraham wants a wife for his son, Eliezer thought to himself, I have a beautiful daughter. She's marriageable age. She grew up in the neighborhood of Avram and Sara. She believes in monotheism. She has the same values, morals, and ethics of Avram and Sara. Who better than to marry Isaac than my daughter, who grew up here with them? Why do I have to go to Mesopotamia, to a corrupt country, to find a wife for Yitzchak when I have my daughter here? Subconsciously, this is what he was thinking. So when Abraham sends him, he doesn't realize what he's thinking. But when he repeats the story to Besuel and he changes the language, instead of Ulai, he says Eli, he remembers deep down what he was really thinking. That deep down in his mind, he was hoping they'll say no. He'll go back to Abraham and say, guess what? I tried. The family didn't want. So now what about my daughter as a potential match? Which Avram didn't want because Rivka had to be the wife. And we'll see later why. So what the Torah is telling you here, very, very fascinating thing, based on Hasidic Jewish mysticism, is many times we have to do something. But subconsciously, we don't want to do it. Or subconsciously, there's something going on. It's like, when do you see shadows in the dark? Where is there ghosts in the dark? But if you turn on the light, no ghosts, no shadows. Sometimes you don't realize that something is holding you back. And you want a different outcome because you don't even realize. So Eliezer, when he goes initially, he's, I got to do what my boss says. But when he repeats the story, something comes to the forefront. he thinks to himself, you know what? A whole time I was really hoping this wouldn't happen because I have a daughter. I was hoping she would say no. But now he uncovers and he realized in himself that flaw, that he wasn't really giving it his all in a sense. But when he sees that, in other words, he shines the light on this issue within himself, she agrees to come. The shidduch, the match couldn't happen until he repeats the story, and this repetition of the story reveals his ulterior thoughts subconsciously that he didn't even know. And that's why the Torah repeats the story, to show us that in life, sometimes you think, I want my child to go to Harvard. I went to Harvard, my husband went to Harvard, my Baba went to Harvard, my uncle went to Harvard. The kid says, Mommy, no, I don't want to go to Harvard. I feel I'll do better in Tulane University. I don't know, NYU. And subconsciously in your mind, you hold back because you really want something else. But then when you talk about it and you think about it and you bring it out of the dark, so to speak, you realize, you know what? My child wants to go somewhere else. And then you give it your all. So sometimes you have to analyze yourself to see, why am I holding back? Is there something inside that I'm not realizing? So we don't even know subconsciously we're holding back. Something's there. Eliezer didn't know that he was holding back. When he repeats the story and he says, a lie to me, he says, yeah, I wanted my daughter to marry, so I'm holding back in my mission. I'm not giving it my all in a sense. And then the match happens because he realizes he's got to put that aside. His personal agenda has to now be moved aside, has to do what his boss told him to do, Avram. And that's why, just to finish off, it doesn't call him by his name. He doesn't say, hey guys, I'm Eliezer. And I was sent here by Abraham. He says, I am the servant of Abraham. Because when you are sent on a mission, you can't have your own agenda. You can't say, hi, this is Freida Hecht, and I am here to purchase the plot of land. You have to say, my boss, Abraham, I'm a servant to my boss. I'm doing what my boss wants. I don't have an agenda here. So I am the servant of Abraham, and I'm here to ask for your daughter's hand in marriage for Yitzchak. The minute he would identify himself as Eliezer means the ego comes to play. It's me. Yeah, Avram is my boss, but it's me. I'm Eliezer. He nullifies himself because he knows there's a bigger picture here. Like some people laugh. I always say, my claim to fame is I'm the rabbi's wife. What's your name? I don't know. I'm the rabbi's wife. That's irrelevant. That's my claim to fame. I don't care what my name is. I'm the rabbi's wife. That's all you need to know. My name, who cares? My husband makes a joke. He says, I'm the Rebbitzins' husband. I said, no, you're not going to pull that one on me. That's my joke. You can't walk around saying you're the Rebbitzins' husband. It doesn't work. It doesn't even sound good. Also, like my husband loves to get up in the pulpit and the Rebbitzin said, I'm like, who's the Rebbitzin here? Could you tell me? Anyway, so to end off, sometimes if something holds you back and you don't know, talk about it. Get it out. Because when it's in darkness, the innuendo is what kills you. Sometimes it's best to confront the issue, confront your hesitation, confront what's holding you back, why it's holding you back. You have a right. Not everybody's perfect. You don't want to do it. Figure out why and whether you should. In this case, Avram is Avram when you do it, Avram says, because that Avram is the Avram. So it's so interesting how the book of Genesis is really a book of psychoanalysis, in my opinion. We're going into the minds of what's happening with people. And by going into that, we realize things about ourselves. So more than ever, this first book of the Torah to me is the book of psychoanalysis. Analyzing what's going on with people, why they're thinking, and how this applies to us. So it's no coincidence that the book of the Torah repeats a story twice, 67 passages, when it doesn't repeat anything. We hardly know anything about anybody, but suddenly there's a whole story about water and camels and humps and troughs and pitchers. I mean, did I really need to know that she went back and forth 25 times? Because it's there to show us something. And when it's in such detail, you know that it's there for a reason. And the reason is an eternal reason. Not only to give us a good fairy tale to tell the children, not only to show us how great she was, but to tell us something about ourselves, to identify things within ourselves. That is the purpose of Torah. Torah is a teacher, Mora, Torah, Hara, a lesson. So with that in mind, there's so much more to say. We'll end off with that the lesson here is, first of all, the amazing compassion of a girl, Rivka. And that's precisely why she becomes the wife of Yitzchak. She is called the rose among thorns. We'll talk about it next week. And it says, Vayaratz Rivka. Rivka ran to bring water. Abraham runs to bring food to the three guests. The same wording to show you the compassion of Avram and Sara is the compassion, the genetics of Rivka. And that's what they want as a wife for Yitzchak, because she's going to be the next matriarch. So Shabbat Shalom, everybody.
Shabbat Shalom.